Welcome to Cheaters Theater. Over 95% of you watch without subscribing. Please like the video, subscribe, and turn on the bell. And tell us, where are you watching from? We'd love to know. Let's begin. You're nothing. Don't act like you matter. My wife once said, honestly, we forget you exist half the time. My daughter chimed in, and that's when I tapped my fork against my glass. This won't take long, just 3 sentences. By the second one, my wife's face drained of color. Andrew Lawson stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror, tracing the silver strands weaving through his once jet-black hair. At 44, Head kept his athletic frame through disciplined morning workouts that his family never noticed. 21 years of marriage, a grand Tudor home in Lakewood, and 2 children who had become strangers. This was the life he had built brick by painstaking brick. Andrew splashed cold water on his face, his mind wandering back to the whispered phone call Head overheard Melissa having the night before. His wife of over 2 decades had giggled like a schoolgirl, lowering her voice to a whisper every time footsteps neared. He wasn't supposed to be home, yet his flight from Phoenix had come in early, and he wanted to surprise her. Who disturbs the queen at this hour? He had joked, entering their bedroom. Melissa had nearly dropped her phone. Jesus, Andrew, you scared me half to death. I thought you weren't coming home until tomorrow. I thought I'd surprise you, he replied, noting how quickly she ended the call. Now, as he adjusted his tie, a deep burgundy silk against a crisp white shirt, Andrew wondered when exactly he had become invisible to his own family. He had built Lawson Defense Systems from the ground up, securing government contracts that made them wealthier than they had ever imagined. Yet Andrew carried his coffee to his study, the one room in the house that was truly his. Behind his mahogany desk, he unlocked the bottom drawer and retrieved a small black notebook. Inside were dates, times, suspicious calls, late nights, a pattern emerging over the last 4 months. He wasn't a military intelligence veteran for nothing. Observation had always been his specialty. His phone buzzed with a text from his old Army buddy, Mark Ellison. Results are in. Call me. Andrew closed the notebook and gazed out the window at the manicured lawn. Whatever Mark had found, it would have to wait. Today was Melissa's birthday dinner, and he had promised to be there physically and mentally. 23 years together deserved at least that much. When Andrew entered the dining room that evening, Melissa was already 3 glasses deep into a bottle of Chateau Margaux. Her auburn hair was styled perfectly, and her black dress clung to the curves she maintained through a strict Pilates routine and the skilled hands of her plastic surgeon. There he is, she said, raising her glass. The man who remembers my birthday only because his secretary puts it on his calendar. Kayla snickered beside her mother. At 22, she was Melissa's mini-me in both looks and attitude, beautiful, entitled, and growing increasingly cold toward her father. Andrew recalled the moment calmly as he took his seat at the head of the table. I even picked out your gift myself. Miracles do happen. Melissa slurred slightly, her words laced with alcohol. Though I doubt it'll be as nice as what Ryan got me. Andrew paused, his fork midway to his mouth. Ryan, Mom's interior designer? Kayla interjected, exchanging a knowing glance with her mother. He has amazing taste. I wasn't aware we were redecorating again, Andrew said, carefully setting his fork down. There's a lot you're not aware of, Dad, Kayla shot back with a smirk. Andrew studied his daughter, sensing something different in her expression, something beyond her usual disdain, closer to pity. She knew something. The realization hit him like a physical blow. How's the Baxter project coming along? Melissa asked, clearly trying to change the subject. Will you be disappearing to Washington again next week? No, Andrew replied, his mind racing. I've decided to be more present for a while. Melissa's smile faltered. Oh, that's unexpected. I'm full of surprises, Andrew said, raising his water glass in a mock toast to new beginnings. Later that night, while Melissa slept off her wine, Andrew called Mark from his study. Tell me, he said, getting straight to the point. It's Ryan Cooper, Mark's gravelly voice confirmed. Interior designer by day, your wife's secret partner by night. Going on 9 months now, not 4. Andrew closed his eyes. There's more, Mark continued. Your daughter knows. She's known from the start. She's been covering for her mother, running interference when you're around. Andrew felt his chest tighten. Financial connections. That's where it gets interesting, Mark added. Melissa has been moving your money into separate accounts. Small amounts at first, but recently totals just shy of 2 million. And Ryan? Andrew asked, his voice tight. He's got a history, Mark said, for previous relationships with wealthy married women, all ending with him significantly richer. He's a professional, Andrew. Andrew thanked his friend and ended the call. He stared at the family portrait on his desk taken on their 21st anniversary trip to Bora Bora. Melissa's smile, once the light of his world, now seemed calculating. Kayla's arm around his shoulder felt like a betrayal. He opened his safe and removed a USB drive, powering up his laptop. The security feed from their home, installed after a break-in 3 years ago, revealed everything he needed to see. Ryan Cooper entering their home while Andrew was away. Melissa laughing, kissing him in the foyer. Kayla welcoming him, complicit in the deception. And then Ryan and Melissa in Andrew's study, opening his safe, photographing documents related to Lawson Defense Systems industrial espionage, wrapped in a covert relationship. Andrew shut the laptop and leaned back in his chair. The pain was there, but it felt distant. Instead, a cold tactical clarity took over, the same mindset that had kept him alive behind enemy lines years ago. They had made a critical mistake. They had underestimated him, mistaking his silence for weakness, his devotion for blindness. As he stared at the ceiling, Andrew Lawson began to formulate a plan. The autumn charity gala at the Lakeview Country Club was in full swing when Andrew arrived fashionably late and alone. Melissa had gone ahead, claiming she needed to help with last-minute arrangements as the committee chairwoman. Andrew knew the real reason. She wanted time with Ryan, who had volunteered his services to design the event. Andrew adjusted the cuffs of his tuxedo and surveyed the room. His entrance caused a subtle shift in the atmosphere. Executives from competing defense firms nodded in his direction. Politicians working the room paused their conversations. Despite Melissa's dismissal of his importance, Andrew Lawson commanded respect in the circles that mattered. "There's the man himself," called out Senator Price, approaching with a champagne flute. "I was just telling the secretary about your new drone defense system revolutionary stuff." Andrew smiled politely, shaking hands and making small talk, all the while keeping his eyes on Melissa across the room. She was radiant in an emerald gown, laughing with Ryan Cooper, whose hand lingered just a little too intimately at the small of her back. "Andrew, you made it," Melissa said, feigning surprise and poorly masking her delight. "You know Ryan, of course." Ryan extended his hand, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Mr. Lawson, a pleasure as always." "Ryan," Andrew replied, gripping the man's hand firmly. "Beautiful work with the decorations. You have quite the touch with my wife's projects." Ryan's smile faltered for a moment. "Melissa has exquisite taste. Makes my job easy. She's always known exactly what she wants." Andrew held Ryan's gaze until the younger man looked away. Across the room, Kayla entered with her boyfriend, Jason Henderson, the son of Richard Henderson, Andrew's chief competitor in the defense industry. Another piece of the puzzle fell into place. "Dad," Kayla said coolly as they approached, "I didn't think you'd come and miss seeing my family in their element." "Never." Andrew kissed her cheek, noting how she stiffened. "Mr. Lawson," Jason greeted him nervously. "Sir," Jason added. "Jason," Andrew replied. "How's your father?" "Still recovering from losing the Patterson contract." Jason's face tightened. He's well, sir. Give him my regards," Andrew said before turning back to Melissa. "Darling, would you dance with your husband for appearance's sake, if nothing else?" On the dance floor, Andrew held Melissa close, feeling the stiffness in her body as she reluctantly complied. "You're in rare form tonight," she muttered. "What's gotten into you?" "Clarity," he replied simply. "It's quite illuminating." Melissa missed a step. "What is that supposed to mean?" "It means I've been asleep for a long time," Andrew said in a low voice. "But I'm wide awake now." Later that evening, Andrew slipped away to a private meeting room where Mark was waiting with a portfolio. "Ryan Cooper, born Brian Hensley," Mark began, spreading photographs across the table. "Changed his name after a fraud conviction in his 20s. Specializes in getting close to wealthy women, particularly those married to men with valuable intellectual property." Andrew studied the surveillance photos, recognizing Ryan meeting with a man who was an agent of a Chinese technology firm. "He's selling my designs through Jason Henderson," Mark confirmed. "The kid's in debt, mostly gambling. Ryan approached him 6 months ago. Jason feeds the intel to his father, who passes it along for a hefty fee." Andrew's jaw tightened. And my daughter doesn't know about the espionage, Mark added. As far as I can tell, she just thinks her mother's having a fling, and she's helping keep you in the dark. She and Jason started dating shortly after Ryan entered the picture. Probably not a coincidence. Andrew nodded, his face expressionless. Any accounts? He asked. Melissa set up offshore accounts, but they're traceable, Mark said. She's planning to leave soon. Tickets to Geneva in about 2 months for her and Ryan one way. What about Logan? Has she contacted him? Andrew asked. No, Mark replied. Your son seems completely in the dark. Andrew gathered the photos and documents, slipping them into his briefcase. Thank you, Mark. You'll need one more favor. Name it. I need Logan home next weekend for a family emergency. Make it happen through official channels. Mark raised an eyebrow. You're not planning anything stupid, are you? Andrew smiled thinly. On the contrary, I'm planning something very, very smart. Back at the gala, Andrew rejoined the party, playing the role of the devoted husband flawlessly. He laughed at the right moments, complimented Melissa publicly, and even raised a toast to her successful event, all the while cataloging faces who knew about the affair, who was complicit in the betrayal, and who simply looked at him with pity. As they drove home in silence, Melissa finally spoke. You're different tonight. Am I? Yes. Attentive, present. She studied his profile in the darkness of the car. It's unsettling. Andrew chuckled. I've decided to take an interest in what matters to you, Melissa. Isn't that what you've always wanted? She turned to look out the window. It's a little late for that, don't you think? It's never too late to wake up to what's happening right under your nose, he replied. The following week, Andrew methodically set his plan in motion. He met with his lawyer and updated his will. He transferred funds into secure accounts that only he could access. He contacted trusted colleagues at the Pentagon about security concerns. Each move was calculated, precise, and invisible to his wife and daughter. On Friday, he picked up Logan from the airport himself. Dad, what's going on? His son asked as they drove. My company said it was a family emergency, but you look fine. It is an emergency, just not a medical one, Andrew replied. I need you to trust me, son. Things at home are not what they seem. Logan studied his father's face. Is it Mom? Andrew nodded silently. I could tell something was wrong the last time I visited, Logan said. She barely talked about you, and Kayla was acting weird. He paused. Is Mom seeing someone else? Andrew tightened his grip. It's not that simple. He'll explain everything later, but tonight, just trust me. Whatever happens, stick with me. I've got a plan. That evening, Andrew arranged for a special family dinner. Melissa, Kayla, Logan, and himself. He had Maria prepare Melissa's favorite meal and an uncorked bottle of rare wine from their cellar. What's the occasion? Melissa asked suspiciously as they gathered at the table. Can a man have dinner with his family? Andrew replied pleasantly. Logan's home for the weekend. I thought we should celebrate. Kayla kept checking her phone beneath the table, clearly uncomfortable with her brother's presence. Logan watched the dynamics unfold, saying little, observing everything. As Maria served the main course, Andrew noticed Melissa texting discreetly. Probably Ryan, wondering why she isn't available tonight, Andrew said dryly. So, Logan, he continued. How's West Point treating you? It's challenging, but good, Logan replied. My tactical planning instructor says I have your instincts. Andrew smiled genuinely. High praise. Please, Kayla muttered. Like we need another military robot in the family. Kayla, Melissa warned, though her heart wasn't fully in it. What? Kayla shot back. We all know Dad cares more about his precious defense contracts than his actual family. Andrew took a sip of wine, unperturbed. Is that what you think? It's what we all think, she said defiantly. You're never here, and when you are, you're locked in your study or taking calls. You're a nobody, Andrew. Don't pretend you matter. The table fell silent. Melissa looked uncomfortable, but didn't contradict her daughter. Honestly, we forget you exist half the time, Kayla added cruelly. Andrew nodded slowly, as though processing a business proposal that required careful consideration. Then, he clinked his fork against his glass, the crystal sound cutting through the tension. This won't take long. Just 3 sentences, he said calmly. I know about Ryan Cooper, the offshore accounts, and the industrial espionage. By the second sentence, Melissa's face had gone pale, her wine glass frozen halfway to her lips. By the third, Kayla's phone slipped from her fingers, clattering onto her plate. Logan looked between them, understanding dawning on his face. Andrew folded his napkin precisely, and placed it beside his plate. Logan, would you join me in my study? Melissa, Kayla, I suggest you don't make any calls or leave the house. The FBI will be here in the morning, and they'll have questions about your involvement in selling classified military technology to foreign interests. The grandfather clock in the hallway struck midnight as Andrew poured 2 fingers of scotch for himself. Logan sat across from him in the study, the family photos on the walls seeming to watch them with new eyes. How long have you known? Logan asked, his voice steady despite the shock. Suspected for months, Andrew replied, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. Confirmed last week. Your mother and Ryan Cooper have been sharing my weapons designs with competitors and foreign entities. Jason Henderson was their pipeline to his father's company. Logan's jaw tightened. And Kayla covered for Mom's affair, though I don't think she knew about the espionage. She was manipulated. Jason started dating her right after Ryan approached him. Jesus, Logan muttered, running a hand through his short military-cut hair. What happens now? Andrew leaned forward. Now I dismantle everything they've built, piece by piece. The federal investigation is real. I've been working with the Defense Department for weeks. They'll arrest Ryan and Richard Henderson tomorrow, but not your mother or sister. You're protecting them after everything they've done? No, Andrew said coldly. The federal charges will be too quick, too clean. What I have planned will be much more thorough. Upstairs, Melissa and Kayla were panicking. Andrew had disabled the house phones and blocked cell service within the property, a security feature had installed years ago but never activated until tonight. He's bluffing, Kayla insisted, pacing her mother's bedroom. Melissa wasn't so sure. The man she had seen at dinner wasn't the accommodating husband she had manipulated for years. This was the Andrew Lawson she had glimpsed only rarely, the strategic mind that had built a defense empire. The former special operations officer who spoke little of his military past. We need to get to Ryan, she said, gathering essentials into a small bag. Warn him. How? Dad's locked down the house. The wine cellar connects to the storm tunnel that runs to the lake, Melissa explained. It was part of the original property, a Prohibition-era escape route. Andrew showed me years ago. They crept downstairs, careful to avoid the study where Andrew's voice could still be heard. In the kitchen, they found Maria finishing up the evening's cleanup. Senora, Maria said coolly, acknowledging Melissa's presence. She had been with the family for 13 years, and her loyalty to Andrew was unwavering. We're just getting some wine, Melissa said, trying to sound casual. Of course, Senora, Maria replied. Though Mr. Lawson asked me to let him know if anyone entered the cellar tonight. Melissa froze. Did he now? And will you? Maria met her gaze steadily. He has been good to me and my family, unlike others in this house. Kayla stepped forward. How much to forget you saw us? Mariah's expression hardened. Some things cannot be bought, Miss Kayla. This is one of them. Melissa grabbed her daughter's arm. It's fine. We'll find another way. But there was no other way. Every exit had been secured. Every method of communication blocked. As dawn approached, Melissa sat on her bed in defeat. The woman who had once schemed her escape with a lover was now trapped in a prison of her own design. At exactly 7 a.m., black SUVs pulled into the driveway. Andrew met the FBI agents at the door, Logan by his side. Mr. Lawson, said Special Agent Lauren Briggs. Everything as we discussed? Yes, Andrew confirmed. My wife and daughter are upstairs. They'll cooperate. The agents fanned out through the house. Melissa and Kayla were brought down shortly after, stunned as the situation was explained. They were not being arrested yet, but would be required to surrender their passports and remain available for further questioning. Andrew, Melissa pleaded as he prepared to leave with Logan. You can't do this. 21 years of marriage must count for something. Andrew looked at her with cold detachment. It counted for nothing when you betrayed me, Melissa. Why should it matter now? What about me? Kayla cried, tears streaming down her face. I'm your daughter. Are you? Andrew asked quietly. Because daughters don't help destroy their fathers. You made your choice when you sided with your mother and her partner. As Andrew and Logan walked toward the car, Agent Briggs stepped beside them. Ryan Cooper is in custody, she reported. So is Richard Henderson. The evidence was exactly where you said it would be. Jason Henderson is cooperating. He's throwing everyone under the bus to save himself. Smart move having your son here last night. The kid keeps saying you masterminded the entire operation. Andrew gave a thin smile. Predictable. He'll find I've documented every interaction in detail. Briggs studied him. This isn't just about the espionage for you, is it? Everything I do serves multiple purposes, Agent Briggs, Andrew replied as he opened the car door. That's why I'm still alive. 5 weeks after the arrests, Andrew Lawson vanished. His office reported he had taken a personal leave of absence. His lawyer informed Melissa that while household expenses would continue to be covered, all other funds were frozen pending the investigation's outcome. The media descended like vultures, feeding on the high-profile scandal of espionage in the defense sector. Melissa quickly became a pariah in the very social circles she once dominated. Friends, if they could be called that, abandoned her. The charity board requested her resignation. The country club politely suggested she might be more comfortable avoiding the premises during the investigation. Ryan Cooper, denied bail as a flight risk, sat in a federal detention center. His attorney sent increasingly desperate messages, pleading for Melissa's help. But the offshore accounts Andrew had mentioned were frozen. The money they'd counted on was unreachable. She realized it one night, staring into her reflection. Andrew had planned everything, every move, every consequence. He had wanted her isolated, and he had succeeded. Kayla, caught up in her own fallout, was no longer a refuge. Jason's cooperation with authorities had included turning over text messages that showed Kayla had known about the affair in detail, making it impossible for her to feign ignorance. Her peers at university had distanced themselves. Her boyfriend was now working with the FBI, offering information about her family, and the man she had dismissed as a ghost in his own home had dismantled her social world with chilling precision. Logan had returned to West Point, leaving no room for ambiguity. You and Kayla made your bed, he told Melissa before departing. Now you get to lie in it, but not with Ryan. Only Maria remained in the mansion with them, watching Melissa and Kayla with quiet disapproval as they moved uneasily through rooms that now felt like a tomb. Every creak of the floorboards made them jump. Meanwhile, in a nondescript Virginia office building, Andrew sat across from Mark, reviewing a set of classified reports. Phase 1 is complete, Mark confirmed. Melissa and Kayla are isolated. Ryan and the Hendersons are looking at a minimum of 18 years, and the company's protected from the blowback. Andrew nodded, his expression calm. And the offshore accounts? Traced directly to Ryan, Mark answered. His attorneys are trying to claim Melissa was unaware of them. She knew, Andrew replied coldly. The signatures are hers. I have the originals. When do you plan to use them? When ITLL do the most damage, Andrew said, standing to look out the window. What about Logan? Safe and focused, Mark answered. His commanding officers are shielding him from the media. Good. And my disappearance? Mark smirked. Working like a charm. Rumors range from mental breakdown to defection to Russia. Andrew raised an eyebrow. Has Melissa hired anyone? Yeah. Private investigator. Jack Turner, ex-cop. Divorced 3 times. Drinks too much. Takes cash for favorable reports. Perfect, Andrew murmured. Make sure he finds exactly what we want him to find. Across town in a rundown bar, Jack Turner slid into a booth across from Melissa Lawson. I've got something, he said, glancing around nervously. Your husband accessed a private account 2 days ago. Transferred $500,000 to an account in the Caymans. Melissa leaned forward. Can you trace it? Already did. Account belongs to a woman named Olivia Hart. French passport. Lives in Montreal. He slid a photo across the table. The woman in the picture was striking, dark-haired, elegant, about 17 years younger than Melissa. In the photo, she and Andrew were entering a hotel, his hand resting lightly on the small of her back. They've been meeting for at least 3 years, Turner added. Europe, Canada. Every time he traveled. Melissa stared at the image, her hand trembling. So, while he was setting me up, he was involved with her. Turner shrugged. Rich, different set of rules. What Melissa didn't know was that Olivia Hart didn't exist. Not really. She was an alias, a fabrication by Mark Ellison, a deep-cover operative from Andrew's military past. The photographs had been staged. The digital trail meticulously crafted. Back at the mansion, Kayla pounced on the new information. This is perfect. If Dad had an affair too, it takes the heat off you. Makes you look less guilty. It's not that simple, Melissa replied, pouring another glass of wine. The espionage charges are what matter. Ryan was sharing Andrew's designs, and I helped him. Unknowingly, Kayla insisted. You didn't realize what the documents were. Melissa gave her daughter a long, tired look. We both know that's not true. I knew exactly what I was giving Ryan, Melissa admitted. Kayla went quiet, the full weight of her mother's confession hitting her for the first time. Why, Mom? We had everything. Because your father always made me feel invisible, Melissa said bitterly. He built an empire and expected me to be grateful for the scraps of his attention. Ryan made me feel seen. And the money, the offshore accounts? Kayla asked. Melissa looked away. Insurance. I wanted freedom on my own terms. The following day, Melissa reached out to Ryan's lawyer, hoping they could align their defense strategy. The reply was swift and devastating. Ryan had taken a plea deal in return for a reduced sentence. He had agreed to testify fully about Melissa's involvement in the espionage. He's claiming the entire operation was your idea, the lawyer said hesitantly. That you approached him specifically to gain access to your husband's classified work. That's a lie, Melissa gasped. He pursued me. Maybe, the lawyer said, grimacing. But he has emails and voice recordings that tell a different story. When the lawyer left, Melissa collapsed in tears. The man who had once promised her a new life had now betrayed her to save himself. That night, as she lay sleepless in bed, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. He knew from the beginning. Everything was part of his plan. It's Olivia Hart, Andrew's friend. Melissa sat up, heart pounding. She texted back, "What plan?" The reply came quickly. "To destroy you completely. Ryan was under surveillance from your first meeting. Andrew was building his case while you thought you were fooling him." Melissa felt the blood drain from her face. "Why are you telling me this?" She typed. "Because he's doing the same to me now. Be careful. He's not finished with you yet." The texts, of course, had not come from Olivia. They were from Andrew himself. Another perfectly planted seed in his long game, sowing fear and paranoia, and he waited patiently for it to bloom. In Virginia, Andrew and Mark were already reviewing the next phase. Ryan's plea deal is locked in, Mark confirmed. 12 years minimum. He's pinned everything on Melissa. As expected, Andrew said coolly. Loyalty was never one of his virtues. The Olivia texts are delivered. Melissa is unraveling. She'll be paranoid now, waiting for the next strike. Andrew didn't react. Then let's proceed. Release the financial records to the prosecutors. Every signature, every transfer, every conversation, and make sure copies reach Kayla. Understood. She needs to see exactly who her mother really is. 3 days later, Kayla sat in the library, sifting through the damning documents delivered by courier bank transfers, signed authorizations, transcripts of conversations. The truth laid bare. Her mother's betrayal wasn't just against Andrew. It had torn their entire family apart. When Melissa came home from her lawyer's office, pale and shaken, Kayla was waiting. "You said you loved him," she said, holding up the documents with trembling hands. "You told me Dad ignored you, that Ryan understood you, but it was never about love. It was about the money, wasn't it?" Melissa's eyes widened as she took in the contents. "Where did you get those?" "Dad sent them," Kayla said, holding up the card. It read, "The truth will set you free." "You don't understand," Melissa started. "I understand perfectly," Kayla interrupted, her voice cold. "You used me. You made me complicit in everything. You knew I admired you, that I would have done anything to be like you, and you used that to turn me against him." "It wasn't like that," Melissa said weakly. "It was exactly like that," Kayla shot back. "And now Ryan is saying it was all your idea. You're going to prison, Mom, and you've dragged me down with you." Melissa reached out, but Kayla stepped away. "Don't. Just don't." That night, Kayla packed a bag and walked out of the mansion. She had nowhere to go. Her friends had deserted her. Logan wouldn't return her messages. And her father, well, he was off the grid. She checked into a cheap roadside motel, the kind of place the Kayla Lawson of a few months ago would never have considered. Sitting on the lumpy mattress, her phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. "Hello," she answered hesitantly. "Hello, Kayla." Andrew's voice was calm, almost gentle. Tears sprang to her eyes. "Dad, where are you?" "Somewhere safe. I was notified that you left the house." Of course he knew he was still watching everything. "I couldn't stay," she said. "Not after everything I found out." "And what did you find out?" "That Mom used me. That she never really cared about Ryan. It was all about the money and getting back at you." Her voice cracked, "And I helped her hurt you." There was a pause. "Yes, you did." "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I was stupid and selfish, and save your apologies," Andrew cut in. "They mean nothing to me now." Kayla winced at the coldness in his voice. "What happens now?" she asked, barely above a whisper. Your mother will be indicted for espionage. The evidence is overwhelming. As for you, he paused. That depends on the choices you make from this point on. Dad, please. I can't lose both of you. You should have thought of that before you chose sides, he replied. Then the line went dead. Kayla sat in the silence, the full weight of her choices pressing down on her. About 2 months after vanishing, Andrew Lawson reemerged not at home, but at the headquarters of Lawson Defense Systems. He walked into the executive boardroom where the directors were gathered in crisis, dressed impeccably and looking tanned, composed, and fully in control. Gentlemen, he said casually, I believe you were discussing my company. The board sat in stunned silence. Chairman Reynolds was the first to recover. Andrew, where have you been? There's been chaos. I'm aware, Andrew interrupted, already sliding into the seat at the head of the table. I've been monitoring everything closely, he continued without missing a beat. The federal investigation has cleared Lawson Defense Systems of any corporate misconduct. My wife's actions and those of Ryan Cooper were their own, he added. Our security protocols worked exactly as intended, which is why the breach was detected and contained. The tension in the room eased visibly. Andrew had always been the visionary, the force that propelled the company. Without him, they'd been adrift. But this situation, he went on, revealed internal weaknesses, especially in those who were quick to distance themselves from me when the heat was on. A few board members shifted uneasily. Andrew opened a folder and distributed documents. This is a restructuring plan, effective immediately. Those who showed loyalty will be rewarded. Those who didn't. He gave a thin, knowing smile. Well, the severance packages are generous. By day's end, 3 board members were ousted. Andrew had reasserted his authority and tightened his grip on the company. News of his return caused the company's plummeting stock to rebound almost overnight. Back at the mansion, Melissa received a hand-delivered envelope from Andrew's attorney. Inside, divorce papers and a proposed settlement. She could keep the house, but little else. Her access to the family's wealth would be completely severed. This is insulting, she told her lawyer. Mrs. Lawson, given the circumstances and the criminal charges you're facing, this is actually quite generous, replied Daniels, a nervous man who kept adjusting his glasses. Mr. Lawson has indicated that he's willing to testify on your behalf if you accept these terms. Testify about what? That you were manipulated by Ryan Cooper. That you didn't fully understand the implications of the documents you gave him. Melissa let out a bitter laugh. He wants me to play the fool. To pretend I was some naive, clueless woman who didn't know what she was doing. It would significantly reduce your sentence, Daniels said carefully. Otherwise, you're looking at 12 to 18 years. Melissa stared down at the documents in her lap, realizing the elegant trap Andrew had designed. If she accepted his offer, she would live in diminished comfort, but with her freedom. If she rejected it, she risked spending the rest of her life behind bars. He always was a brilliant strategist, she murmured. Across town, Kayla sat in a small apartment she had managed to rent with the last of her accessible funds. Her phone rang. Logan, I heard Dad's back, he said without any preamble. He is, Kayla replied. At the company, not at home. Have you talked to him? Briefly. He's different. Colder. I'm not surprised, Logan said. You tried to apologize? I did. He wasn't interested. Logan sighed. What did you expect? You betrayed him in the worst way. I didn't know about the espionage, Logan, I swear. Maybe not. But you knew Mom was cheating and you helped her cover it up. You chose her, Kayla. Kayla shut her eyes, the truth hitting like a punch to the chest. And now he's choosing too, she whispered. He's cutting us off. It's not about choosing sides anymore, Logan said. It's about consequences. Dad always told us every choice comes with a price. When the call ended, Kayla sat quietly, staring at her reflection in the window. The pampered princess was gone, replaced by someone forced to face reality. Her trust fund was frozen, pending the investigation. Her credit cards were maxed out. The university had placed her on leave. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number, but she recognized the style instantly. Maple Street Diner, 7 p.m. Come alone. Hey. The Maple Street Diner was a far cry from the upscale places Kayla once frequented. She arrived at exactly 7, scanning the booths until she saw him. Andrew Lawson sat in the corner, sipping a coffee. Sit, he said, not looking up. Kayla slid into the booth, acutely aware of her wrinkled clothes and unwashed hair. Thanks for meeting me. Andrew studied her. You look terrible. Appreciate it, she said with a flicker of her old sarcasm. It's my new look, disgraced daughter chic. A faint smile ghosted across his face, but it vanished as quickly as it came. Why did you want to meet? She asked. I didn't. You texted me? Kayla pulled out her phone and handed it over. You sure about that? Andrew examined the screen, his eyes narrowing. That's not from me. A chill ran through Kayla. Then who? Your mother, Andrew said, suddenly standing. We need to leave. Now. But it was already too late. The diner door swung open, and in walked Melissa with a man close behind her. Kayla didn't recognize the man with Melissa, but Andrew's posture shifted instantly, alert, coiled, dangerous. Hello, Andrew, Melissa said with a brittle smile. A family reunion, Melissa, Andrew acknowledged coolly. And you must be Jack Turner, former detective, current private investigator, future inmate once your tampering with federal evidence comes to light. Turner's expression hardened. You think you know everything, don't you, Lawson? Not everything, Andrew replied evenly. Just enough. He glanced at Kayla. Your mother used your phone to lure me here. Clever, actually, Melissa. Kayla turned to Melissa in confusion. What is this? Your father's been playing all of us, Melissa snapped. Pulling strings from the shadows, setting us up. But now it's my turn. Andrew sighed, almost looking bored. And what exactly do you plan to accomplish with this little ambush? Justice, Melissa said sharply. Mr. Turner has uncovered evidence of your affair with Olivia Hart. Proof that you planned to leave me long before Ryan. This entire espionage setup was your excuse to divorce me without paying what I deserve. Andrew's lips curled into a cold smile. Olivia Hart doesn't exist, Melissa. She's a fabrication. A test to see how you'd respond. And you responded exactly as I expected, desperate, reaching for anything that might save you. Melissa's confidence wavered. You're lying. Mr. Turner has photographs, staged, Andrew interrupted. With an operative who once worked under me in military intelligence. He turned to Turner. Tell my wife what you found in the offshore accounts. The truth. Turner shifted uncomfortably, glancing between them. He's been working for me the entire time, Andrew said calmly. Every discovery he brought to you was exactly what I wanted you to see. Melissa's face went pale. That's not possible. Everyone has a price, Andrew said simply. His was modest immunity for his own questionable activities and enough money to retire. Far less than what you tried to take from me. Kayla watched in stunned silence as the full extent of her father's manipulation came into focus. He hadn't just responded to betrayal, he had anticipated it and controlled every step of the fallout. Why go through all of this? She asked. Why not just divorce Mom and walk away? Andrew turned to her, his gaze steady. Because actions have consequences, Kayla. Your mother didn't just cheat. She shared classified information. She helped compromise national security. She turned you against me. A simple divorce wouldn't even come close to justice. Without warning, Melissa lunged and slapped him hard across the face. You heartless scumsucker. Andrew didn't flinch. He calmly wiped a drop of blood from his lip and looked at her with something close to pity. Goodbye, Melissa. My lawyer has my final offer. I suggest you accept it. He turned and walked out. Kayla rushed after him. Dad, wait. He stopped beside his car. What is it? I didn't know, she said, her voice breaking. About the espionage, about Mom's plans. I thought it was just an affair. Just an affair? Andrew repeated, as though the words were poison. As if breaking my trust and humiliating me wasn't enough. I was wrong, she whispered, tears streaking her face. And I've lost everything because of it, my friends, my reputation, my future. Isn't that punishment enough? Andrew looked at her for a long, silent moment. No, he said finally. It's only the beginning. You made your choice, Kayla. Now live with it. As Andrew drove away, Kayla stood motionless in the parking lot, the bitter weight of consequences lingering on her tongue. The federal courthouse buzzed with activity as reporters and onlookers vied for space. Inside, Melissa Lawson sat beside her attorney, her once flawless appearance now worn and haggard. Before her lay the plea agreement, a document that would define the rest of her life. All rise. The bailiff called as Judge Elaine Matthews entered the courtroom. Across the aisle, the prosecution team organized their case materials, confident in their position. Among the spectators sat Andrew, composed in a charcoal suit, his face expressionless. Mrs. Lawson, Judge Matthews began. I understand you wish to change your plea. Yes, Your Honor, Melissa's lawyer replied. My client intends to plead guilty to reduced charges of conspiracy and unauthorized disclosure of classified information. The government's position? The judge asked the prosecutor. We accept the plea, Your Honor, the prosecutor replied. Given Mrs. Lawson's cooperation and Mr. Lawson's statement attesting to her limited understanding of the documents she provided Mr. Cooper. Judge Elaine Matthews glanced over her glasses at Melissa. Mrs. Lawson, do you understand that by entering this plea, you are admitting guilt to these charges? I do, Your Honor, Melissa said, her voice barely above a whisper. And you are doing so freely and voluntarily, without coercion. Melissa's eyes briefly flicked to Andrew before returning to the judge. Yes, Your Honor. The proceedings continued, legal jargon washing over her like a toxic tide. The final terms: 4 years in a minimum security facility, forfeit of assets tied to the crimes, and acceptance of Andrew's proposed divorce settlement. When the hearing ended, Melissa was allowed a few minutes with her family before being taken into custody. Kayla hugged her mother tightly, tears streaming down her face. I'll come visit every weekend, she promised. Take care of yourself, Melissa whispered back. And be smarter than I was. As Melissa approached Andrew, he remained standing, stiff and distant. So this is your victory, she said softly. You've reduced me to nothing. You did that yourself, Andrew replied. I only ensured there were consequences. Will you ever forgive me? She asked, a final glimmer of their shared past in her voice. Andrew looked at her for a long moment. No, he said simply. Some betrayals cannot be undone. Melissa was then led away. Logan joined his father and sister. The three Lawsons stood in silence until Andrew finally spoke. Logan, your leave ends tomorrow. Yes, sir. Back to West Point in the morning. Andrew nodded. Good. Stay focused. This situation will not affect your future. I have spoken with your commandant. Logan straightened. Thank you, sir. Andrew turned to Kayla, who looked at him with hopeful eyes. Dad, I have a meeting, he said, cutting her off. Logan, I will call you next week. Without another glance at Kayla, he walked away, leaving her beside her brother. The message was unmistakable. Logan was forgiven. She was not. Give him time, Logan said, giving her shoulder a reassuring squeeze. Kayla shook her head. You do not get it. He is not mad anymore. That would be easier. He is just done with me. That evening, Andrew sat alone in his Pentagon City apartment, watching news coverage of Melissa's plea deal. The media painted him as the sympathetic figure, the betrayed husband, the patriotic businessman who had exposed espionage. Only he knew the depth of his calculated revenge. His phone rang. It was Mark Ellison. It is done, Mark reported. Ryan Cooper has been processed in a federal prison. He is already receiving quite the welcome from inmates who do not take kindly to traitors, Mark said. And Jason Henderson cut a deal. He will do 6 years. His father got 16. The Hendersons are finished. Their stock has collapsed, and all government contracts have been canceled. Andrew gave a satisfied nod. And Kayla, is she still at the apartment we arranged? Yes. She is working as a waitress at a cafe near Howard University. Quite a shift from her days as a socialite. Andrew was quiet for a moment. Keep monitoring her. No contact, no interference. Mark hesitated. You are being harder on her than on Logan. Logan never betrayed me, Andrew replied coldly. He never looked me in the eye while helping destroy everything I built. After hanging up, Andrew walked to the window, staring out at the glittering lights of the Capitol. Phase 2 was complete. Melissa sentenced, Ryan in prison, the Hendersons ruined. But he was not finished. The final phase would be the most devastating of all. 3 weeks later, Kayla returned to her cramped apartment after a double shift, her feet sore, her cafe uniform stained with coffee. She was startled to find Logan sitting outside her door in full dress uniform. Logan, what are you doing here? He stood, face serious. We need to talk. Inside. As Kayla made coffee, Logan paced the small living room. Dad is selling the house, he said. All of Mom's things are being packed up and stored until she gets out. Kayla shrugged. Not a shock. He has not been back since everything fell apart. That is not all. He is stepping down as CEO of Lawson Defense. She froze. What? That company is his life. Not anymore. Apparently, there is a press conference tomorrow. Word is he is taking a position at the Defense Department. Something classified. Kayla sank onto the worn sofa. He is wiping the slate clean. even getting rid of us. Logan sat beside her. Not me, he said quietly. He calls regularly, checks on my progress. He has even talked about getting me a post at the Pentagon after I graduate. The silence between them spoke volumes. Andrew had cut Melissa and Kayla from his life while embracing Logan. The fracture in the family was complete and permanent. I have tried everything, Kayla whispered, tears in her eyes. Letters, calls, emails. He will not answer. You sided with Mom, Logan said gently. In Dad's world, loyalty is everything. So that is it. One mistake, and I am erased from his life forever. Logan paused, then spoke carefully. Dad was in special operations before he started the company. He never talks about it, but I have heard things. There was an op in Kosovo. His unit was betrayed by their translator. Everyone but Dad died in an ambush. What happened to the translator? Kayla asked, already dreading the answer. He vanished. No body, no trace. Just disappeared. Logan met her gaze. Dad does not give second chances to traitors, Kayla. Not ever. The next day, Andrew Lawson stood confidently at a podium, cameras flashing, as he addressed the press. After 22 years leading Lawson Defense Systems, he began, I have accepted a position as Special Advisor to the Secretary of Defense. The company will remain in trusted hands and will continue our mission to safeguard American interests both at home and abroad. A reporter called out, Mr. Lawson, how has the recent scandal involving your wife influenced this decision? Andrew did not flinch. My personal circumstances are unrelated to this professional transition. Next question. Are the rumors true that you are dating Congresswoman Karen Mitchell? A faint smile played at Andrew's lips. My private life will remain private. This press conference is about Lawson Defense, not about me. Watching the broadcast from her apartment, Kayla felt a shiver run through her. The man at the podium was unrecognizable, confident, powerful, and completely unaffected by the wreckage of their family. He had rebuilt himself like a phoenix rising from the ashes of betrayal. Her phone buzzed. A message from a block number lit up the screen. Final phase begins tomorrow. Prepare yourself. Hey, Kayla stared at the message, heart pounding. What else could he possibly have planned? Exactly 16 months to the day after the dinner that changed everything, Andrew Lawson returned to the mansion. The estate had remained untouched since Melissa's imprisonment, maintained only by a minimal staff. Now, as his sleek black SUV rolled up the circular drive, the house glowed with light. Inside, Maria coordinated a team of caterers putting the finishing touches on an elaborate dinner. Fresh floral arrangements adorned every room, and the dining table gleamed with fine china and crystal. Perfect timing, Mr. Lawson, Maria greeted him. Everything is ready, just as you asked. Andrew nodded, surveying the house with detached interest. And our guests? Mr. Logan is already here. Miss Kayla is on her way. The others will arrive at 7 as instructed. Andrew climbed the stairs to the master suite, now completely redecorated with all traces of Melissa erased. After showering and changing into a tailored suit, he opened a secure safe and retrieved a sealed envelope. Downstairs, Logan waited in the study, observing the changes. The family photos were gone, replaced by art and military memorabilia. It was as if Melissa and Kayla had never existed. Dad, Logan greeted with a firm handshake. The place looks different. Necessary renovations, Andrew replied. How was the drive from West Point? Fine. Kayla called me in a panic. She does not know what this dinner is about. Andrew's face remained blank. She will understand soon enough. The doorbell rang. Moments later, Kayla entered the study. Gone was the pampered, polished girl from a year and a half ago. She was thinner now, her demeanor cautious. Her simple but elegant outfit reflected a life of hard-earned independence. Dad, she said softly, thank you for inviting me. Andrew gave a brief nod, avoiding her eyes. Logan, give us a moment. When they were alone, Andrew gestured for her to sit. You have been working at the cafe for a year now. I have, she confirmed. And I have been taking night classes business administration. I know, Andrew replied. I have had you watched. Kayla did not react. Keeping tabs on the enemy, she asked quietly. Observing your decisions, he corrected. You had easier options. Your mother's friends offered help. You turned them down. They were not my friends, Kayla said bitterly. They dropped me the second I stopped being useful. Andrew studied her carefully. Why did you side with your mother, Kayla? I want the truth. This time, Kayla held his gaze. Because she made me believe you did not care. That your work, your ambitions, always came before us. And I believed her because you were distant, always working, always focused on the company or government contracts. Mom was there, present. It was easy to believe her version of events. Andrew nodded slowly. A careful manipulation. Melissa was always skilled at that. I was wrong, Kayla said. I see that now, but it does not erase what I did. Before Andrew could respond, Maria appeared at the doorway. The other guests have arrived, Mr. Lawson. In the formal living room, Kayla was stunned to see a gathering of Washington's elite high-ranking military officers, Defense Department officials, members of Congress, and, most notably, Congresswoman Karen Mitchell, the poised, silver-haired former prosecutor recently rumored to be romantically linked to Andrew. What is this? Kayla whispered to Logan. I am not sure, he admitted. But whatever Dad is planning, it is big. Andrew moved effortlessly through the crowd, commanding attention with the presence of a man entirely at home in the halls of power. Kayla watched as he introduced Logan to key figures, clearly positioning him for a bright future. Dinner was executed with military efficiency, conversations centered around national security and defense policy. Seated far from her father, Kayla observed how different he seemed in this environment. Engaged, confident, even charismatic, he was respected and admired by everyone in the room. After dessert, Andrew rose and tapped his glass for attention. Thank you all for being here tonight. About 15 months ago, my life changed in profound ways, both personally and professionally. Many of you were instrumental in helping me navigate that transition, and I am deeply grateful. Supportive murmurs rippled through the room. Tonight marks a new beginning, Andrew continued. Secretary Harris has asked me to lead a newly formed division at the Pentagon focused on counterintelligence and the protection of defense technologies. I have accepted. Applause erupted, and Secretary Harris raised his glass in a toast. In addition, Andrew said, glancing at Karen Mitchell, who returned the look with a warm smile, I have decided to make some personal changes. But before we speak of the future, there is one last matter from the past to address. He signaled to Maria, who handed him the sealed envelope he had retrieved earlier. This envelope contains evidence that some of you have long sought concerning the espionage case involving my former wife. I believe the time has come for full transparency. Kayla stiffened in her seat, bracing herself for whatever was coming. Andrew opened the envelope and removed several photographs. These images confirm what we had suspected, but could not prove until now. The involvement of foreign intelligence operatives in the theft of classified defense technologies. My ex-wife was not merely aiding her lover for personal gain. She was knowingly collaborating with agents of a hostile foreign power. Gasps and shocked murmurs swept through the room as he passed the photographs to Secretary Harris. Kayla caught glimpses of Melissa in covert meetings, exchanging documents with unidentified men in secluded locations. This is why I have accepted the new position, Andrew said firmly. This betrayal was personal, and I am committed to ensuring it never happens again to me or to anyone else. The conversation that followed was heavy with implications technical, legal, political. As officials debated next steps, Kayla remained motionless, stunned by the final confirmation of her mother's betrayal. Melissa had not just been unfaithful or greedy. She had committed treason. Later, as the guests departed and the house grew quiet, Kayla stood with Andrew on the terrace. The night air was crisp, and soft lighting bathed the garden below in a gentle glow. Were those photographs real? She asked in a low voice. Andrew nodded. I have had them for almost 2 years. Why reveal them now? Because Melissa is petitioning for early release on medical grounds, he answered. These ensure that will not happen. Kayla absorbed this. You are making sure she serves every day of her sentence. Actions have consequences, Andrew said simply. She made her choices knowing the risks. And me? Kayla asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Have I served my sentence? Andrew turned to look at her fully for the first time that evening. He studied her for a moment before responding. That depends on what you have learned. I have learned that nothing is more important than loyalty, she said. That actions have lasting consequences. That I cannot expect forgiveness just because I am sorry. Good lessons, Andrew acknowledged. Expensive ones. What happens now? Kayla asked. Andrew considered her carefully. Now you continue on your path. Finish your education. Build your own life. Without you in it, Kayla concluded. I did not say that, Andrew replied. But our relationship will never be what it was. Too much has happened. He handed her a business card with a phone number written on the back. This is my private line. Use it if you need me. Not before. It was not forgiveness, not quite, but it was something a door left slightly ajar rather than permanently closed. As Kayla drove back to her apartment that night, she realized her father's revenge had never been about destroying those who betrayed him. It had been about rebuilding himself stronger and more powerful than before, while they were left to witness his resurrection from the ashes they had created. 3 years after the fateful dinner, Andrew Lawson had fully reinvented himself. Now serving as the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Technology Security, he commanded respect in Washington's corridors of power. His relationship with Karen Mitchell had evolved into a partnership of equals two powerful individuals who understood each other's ambitions and supported them fully. Logan had graduated from West Point with honors and now served as a lieutenant in Army intelligence, his career path clearly influenced by his father's connections and guidance. Kayla had completed her business degree and secured a position with a technology startup, living modestly but independently. Melissa remained in federal prison. Her appeal for early release had been denied after the revelation of her connections to foreign agents. Ryan Cooper had become a model prisoner, writing a memoir about his unwitting involvement in espionage, though it had been universally rejected by publishers. On a crisp autumn morning, Andrew sat in his Pentagon office reviewing classified reports on technology theft attempts by foreign operatives. His secure phone line rang. Lawson, he answered briskly. Sir, there has been an incident at FCI Alderson, the FBI liaison reported, involving Melissa Lawson. Andrew's expression did not change. What kind of incident? She tried to harm herself. Sir, she is in stable condition, but the prison psychologist is concerned. She is requesting to see you. Denied, Andrew replied without hesitation. Forward any relevant security information to my office, but I have no interest in personal contact. Understood, sir. There is one more thing. Before the attempt, she mailed letters to several people, including you and your daughter. They were intercepted during security screening. The contents are mostly personal, but there were references to someone named the handler, possibly her foreign contact. We are investigating. Andrew's interest sharpened. Send me copies immediately. Within the hour, Andrew was reviewing scans of Melissa's letter. Her handwriting, once elegant, had become erratic. The contents were rambling, shifting between apologies and accusations. But certain passages stood out. The handler promised we would be protected. He lied to us all. Ryan does not know the real reason behind everything. I did it for us, Andrew. For our future. Andrew read the letter multiple times, his tactical mind processing the implications. Melissa seemed to be suggesting a deeper conspiracy, one that went beyond the affair and espionage, something Andrew himself had been investigating before her betrayal. As he continued to consider this, his assistant announced an unexpected visitor. Kayla. She entered his office hesitantly, dressed professionally in a simple suit, her hair neatly pulled back. Thank you for seeing me, Dad, she said. Andrew nodded, signaling for her to sit. What brings you to the Pentagon? Mom tried to hurt herself, Kayla said bluntly. I thought you should know. I was informed, Andrew replied, his voice cold. FBI protocol. Kayla studied her father's impassive face. Do you not care at all? My personal feelings are irrelevant, he answered. It is a security matter now. Because of the handler? Kayla asked. Andrew's eyes narrowed. How do you know that term? Mom mentioned him in her letters to me over the past year. I thought it was prison paranoia until the FBI contacted me this morning. She placed several envelopes on his desk. These are all her letters. I think you should read them. Andrew examined the stack of letters. You kept correspondence with her. She is still my mother, Kayla replied simply. Despite everything. Andrew began reading the letters while Kayla remained silent. As he read, a pattern began to emerge. Melissa had been dropping hints about a larger conspiracy involving something called Project Lazarus, a project Andrew had apparently been investigating before her betrayal. Did you know what these references meant? Andrew asked, looking up. Kayla shook her head. I thought she was delusional, but after her self-harm attempt, I started wondering if there was more to the story. Andrew leaned back, his mind racing. For years earlier, He had indeed been investigating irregularities surrounding a classified defense project experimental technology that was supposedly abandoned, but might have continued under deep cover. His investigation had mysteriously stalled just around the time Melissa's affair had begun. "Why are you bringing this to me now?" he asked. "Because whatever the handler is, Mom is terrified of him," Kayla said. "She believes he is going to silence her in prison. And if that is true, she betrayed you for reasons more complicated than we thought." Andrew's expression hardened. "She betrayed me. The reason is irrelevant. What if she was threatened? What if they used her to get to you because you were investigating something they wanted hidden? That does not excuse her choices." Andrew's voice turned cold. "Or yours." Kayla met his gaze steadily. "No, it does not. But it might explain them." She stood to leave. "I am going to visit Mom tomorrow. If you want to know what else she knows, this might be your last chance." After Kayla left, Andrew called Mark, now the chief security advisor at the Pentagon. "I need you to reopen the Lazarus file," he said without preamble. "And I need enhanced security for Melissa at Alderson." Discreetly. "Lazarus?" Mark sounded surprised. "That is ancient history. What has happened?" "Possibly nothing. Possibly everything. Just do it." The next morning, Andrew surprised Kayla by meeting her outside FCI Alderson. "I will give her 15 minutes, he said. "No more." Melissa Lawson barely resembled the elegant socialite who had once dominated Washington's charity scene. Prison had aged her, and the self-harm attempt had left her physically weakened. When Andrew entered her hospital room, her eyes widened in disbelief. "Andrew," she rasped. He did not soften. "You came," she said. "Not for you," he clarified. "For information." Melissa nodded weakly. "The handler." "You found my messages," she said, her voice cracking. "Who is he?" Andrew demanded. "I never knew his real name," Melissa began, her voice strained. "He approached me 4 years ago at the winter charity auction. Charming, sophisticated. He knew everything about us, our marriage problems, your work, your investigation into Lazarus." "Go on," Andrew prompted when she hesitated. "He said you were digging into something dangerous, something powerful people wanted to stop. He offered me a choice: help distract you with a personal crisis, or they would eliminate you permanently. So you started an affair to distract me?" Andrew's voice was skeptical. "It was not supposed to be real," Melissa insisted. "Ryan was recruited, too. He did not know the full story, just that he needed to get close to me. But then," she trailed off, her voice faltering. "You fell for him," Andrew finished, his tone flat, "and decided to steal from me as well." Melissa closed her eyes, a long pause filling the room. "Yes." The handler kept demanding more documents, access codes. When I resisted, he threatened Kayla. Andrew glanced at his daughter, who stood silently by the door, her face pale. "Why did you not come to me?" he asked. Melissa's voice was bitter. "Would you have believed me? We were already distant, and they had evidence of the initial meetings that made me look guilty." "Convenient story," Andrew remarked. "What is your proof?" Melissa gestured weakly to the bedside table. "Third drawer. Inside my Bible." Kayla retrieved the book and found a small data chip hidden in the hollowed-out pages. "Audio recordings," Melissa explained. "I started making them after the first year. Insurance policy." Andrew pocketed the chip without comment. "If this is manipulation, I am already in prison," Melissa said quietly. "What more can you do to me? The handler is real. And if you have reopened Lazarus, you are in danger again." Andrew stood to leave. "I will investigate your claims. That is all I can promise." "Andrew," Melissa called as he reached the door. "I did betray you. That part was real. And I am sorry." He paused, but did not turn around. "Goodbye, Melissa." Outside, Kayla hurried to keep up with her father's purposeful stride. "Do you believe her?" "Partially," Andrew admitted. "The Lazarus Project was real, and my investigation did hit unexpected roadblocks. The timing matches." "What now?" Andrew stopped at his car. "Now I find out if the handler exists. And if he does, I deal with him my way." Back in Washington, Andrew sequestered himself in a secure room at the Pentagon with Mark, analyzing the audio recordings from Melissa's chip. The voice of the handler was disguised, but the content was unmistakable threats, coercion, specific demands for information related to Andrew's work. "It could be staged," Mark suggested, playing devil's advocate. "It could," Andrew agreed. "But combined with what we know about the Lazarus Project's mysterious cancellation, you think she was telling the truth about being coerced?" Andrew's expression was conflicted. Partially coerced at first, perhaps, but she made her choices. She could have come to me, to the authorities. So what is your play here? Mark asked. Andrew's eyes hardened. We find the handler. We uncover whatever they were hiding in Lazarus. And then I finish what I started 4 years ago, before I was distracted by personal betrayals. For the first time in 4 years, Andrew Lawson was not focused on punishing those who had betrayed him. He was hunting the puppet master who had helped orchestrate his family's destruction. And the threat was about to learn exactly who they had underestimated. 8 months after Melissa's self-harm attempt, Andrew Lawson stood at the window of his Pentagon office, watching the early morning light illuminate the Washington Monument in the distance. On his desk lay the complete file on the handler, the result of an intensive covert investigation. The man's true identity was Mason Vance, a former intelligence operative turned private contractor for a shadowy consortium of defense industry players. His specialty was compromising individuals with access to classified information, often through elaborate personal entrapments. Melissa had merely been one of his targets, with Ryan Cooper another pawn in his game. A knock at the door interrupted Andrew's thoughts. "Come in," he called without turning. Karen Mitchell entered, looking polished as always in a tailored suit. "The president's security briefing has been moved to 11, she informed him. Andrew nodded. "Thank you for letting me know." Karen hesitated before speaking again. "You seem distracted lately. Is it the Lazarus investigation?" "Among other things," Andrew admitted. "The pieces are finally coming together. Is there anything I can do to help?" she asked, moving closer. Andrew turned to face her, studying her carefully. "Actually, there is. You have access to the congressional oversight records on abandoned defense projects, do you not?" "Of course," Karen replied. "Why?" "I need everything on Project Lazarus, especially the original termination order and who authorized it." Karen's smile faltered slightly. "That is highly classified, Andrew. Even with your clearance, there would be questions." "You can access it without raising flags," Andrew pressed. "Given your position on the Intelligence Committee." "I will see what I can do," she promised, kissing him briefly before departing. Once alone, Andrew made a secure call. "She took the bait," he told Mark. "Exactly as predicted." "You are sure it is her?" Mark asked. "The timing fits," Andrew replied. "She was on the Intelligence Committee when Lazarus was shut down. She pursued our relationship immediately after Melissa's arrest, and she has been subtly monitoring all my investigations since." "Risky game you are playing," Mark warned. "No riskier than being manipulated for 4 years," Andrew said coldly. "Tonight, we confirm everything. Be ready." Later that evening, Andrew hosted a small dinner party at his Georgetown townhouse. The guests included key Pentagon officials, select members of Congress, and, of course, Karen. Throughout the evening, Andrew played the attentive host while Mark conducted a sophisticated electronic sweep of the house, discovering exactly what they had suspected: advanced surveillance devices in Andrew's study, bedroom, and even his secure phone. As the party wound down and guests began to leave, Andrew led Karen to his study, where he unlocked a hidden wall safe. "I want to show you something," he said, pulling out a thick file labeled Lazarus, Complete Findings. Karen's interest was immediate but carefully controlled. "I thought you were still investigating." "The official investigation continues," Andrew clarified. "But I have been conducting my own private inquiry. What I found is disturbing." He placed the file on his desk, but did not open it. "First, though, I would like a drink. Would you care for one?" "Bourbon." "Neat," Karen replied, her eyes never leaving the file. Andrew walked to the bar cart, deliberately turning his back as he prepared their drinks. As expected, when he glanced in the mirror, he saw Karen quickly photographing several pages of the file with a miniature camera disguised as a pen. "Here we are," Andrew said, turning back with their drinks. "To truth," finally revealed. Karen smiled and clinked her glass against his. "To truth." They both drank, and Andrew launched into a detailed explanation of his Lazarus findings, carefully fabricated information designed to mislead Karen. She listened attentively, asking occasional questions that revealed her extensive knowledge of a project she should have known little about. "It is getting late," Andrew eventually said, closing the file. "Perhaps we should continue this discussion tomorrow." "Of course," Karen agreed. "May I use your bathroom before I leave?" While she was gone, Andrew sent a prearranged text to Mark. "Eagle has landed. When Karen returned, her demeanor remained unchanged, but Andrew knew she had transmitted the photographs and documents to her handler. The trap was set. "I will call you tomorrow," she said, kissing him goodnight. After she left, Andrew waited precisely 30 minutes before making his move. The tracking device Mark had planted on Karen's car showed she had not gone home, but had instead driven to an office building in Alexandria, one owned by a shell company linked to Mason Vance. Against Mark's advice, Andrew drove there alone, parking 2 blocks away and approaching on foot. Years of special operations training returned instinctively as he bypassed security and entered the building undetected. On the 3rd floor, voices echoed from a conference room. Andrew moved silently closer, his phone recording everything. "He suspects nothing," Karen was saying. "These new Lazarus findings change everything. Not if Lawson has connected our operation to the Chinese military contracts," replied a male voice, undoubtedly Mason Vance. "He has not confirmed anything," Karen insisted. "This is all theoretical. We cannot take chances," Vance declared. "The original plan stands. Lawson has to be eliminated before his report reaches the secretary." "That will not be necessary," Andrew said calmly, stepping into the doorway. "The secretary already has my full report, including this conversation." Vance and Karen froze, along with 2 other men in the room. Andrew held up his phone, live streaming to the Pentagon Security Office. "Your building is currently being surrounded by federal agents." Vance recovered first, reaching for a weapon, but Andrew moved with the lethal efficiency of his Special Forces days, disarming him with a precise strike that left Vance gasping on the floor. Karen stared at Andrew, her composure finally shattered. "Andrew, please, I can explain. Save it for your interrogation." Andrew cut her off. 4 years of manipulation using Melissa and Ryan to distract me from discovering your weapons technology sales to hostile nations. Orchestrating the destruction of my family to protect your operation. It was just business," Vance wheezed from the floor. "Nothing personal." Andrew looked down at him with cold contempt. "You made it personal when you targeted my family. That was your mistake." Within minutes, federal agents stormed the building, arresting Vance, Karen, and their associates. As they were led away, Karen made one last plea. "Andrew, we had something real," she insisted. "It was not all a lie." Andrew regarded her impassively. "Everything with you was a lie. The difference is, I knew it from the beginning." In the aftermath, the full scope of the conspiracy was revealed. Mason Vance had been running an elaborate operation, selling classified weapons technology to foreign powers and using Karen's position on the Intelligence Committee to protect their activities. When Andrew's investigation into Project Lazarus threatened to expose them, they orchestrated Melissa's affair and the subsequent espionage scandal to discredit and distract him. 10 days after the arrests, Andrew visited Melissa in prison. She looked slightly better than during her hospital stay, but was still a shadow of her former self. "You were right about the handler," Andrew acknowledged. "Vance has been arrested along with his entire network, including Karen Mitchell." Melissa's eyes widened. "Your girlfriend, she was part of it." "She was Vance's partner from the beginning," Andrew confirmed. "Sent to monitor me after your arrest." "And you knew I suspected after reading your letters," he added. "I confirmed it 8 months ago and have been building a case since then." Melissa absorbed the information. "So I was manipulated into betraying you, and then you were manipulated into a relationship with another traitor. There is some irony in that." Andrew did not smile. "Manipulation does not absolve choice. Vance may have targeted you, but you chose to continue the affair, steal from me, and turn our daughter against me. You could have come to me at any point." "I know," Melissa admitted. "I made my choices. I am paying for them." Andrew stood to leave. "Your cooperation in the Vance investigation will be noted in your record. It might help with a future parole hearing." "Andrew," Melissa called as he reached the door. "Does this change anything between us?" He paused. "No," he said finally. "Some bridges cannot be rebuilt once they are burned." When Andrew returned to Washington, he found Kayla waiting in his office, granted access by Mark. The past year and a half had transformed their relationship from complete estrangement to a cautious, formal reconnection, professional, but distant. "I heard about Karen and the handler," she said. "It is all over the Pentagon." Andrew nodded. "Justice finally served." "And Mom?" she asked. "Did you see her?" "Yes. She confirmed what we suspected about the initial manipulation, but it does not change the choices she made afterward. Kayla studied her father. Does it change how you feel about what happened? Andrew considered the question carefully. It contextualizes it. It does not excuse it. And me? Kayla asked, the question she had been working toward for over a year. Does knowing I was manipulated by both Mom and Jason change how you feel about my betrayal? Andrew met his daughter's gaze directly. You chose your side. You had opportunities to come to me with your concerns, to question what was happening. You did not. I know, she acknowledged. And I have accepted the consequences. I have built a new life without your help, proven I can stand on my own. Yes, you have, Andrew agreed. That counts for something. A pregnant silence filled the room before Kayla spoke again. Logan is being deployed next month. He suggested a family dinner before he leaves. Just the three of us. Andrew's expression remained blank. When? Saturday. At my apartment. Nothing fancy. Andrew nodded once. I will be there. It was not forgiveness. Andrew Lawson did not forgive betrayal, not even from his daughter. But it was acknowledgement. Recognition that she had faced her consequences and emerged stronger. That was all he could offer. 4 days later, Andrew attended the sentencing of Mason Vance and Karen Mitchell. Both received lengthy prison terms for espionage and conspiracy. As they were led from the courtroom, Karen caught Andrew's gaze one last time, searching for any hint of the emotion she thought they shared. She found none. Andrew Lawson watched passively as the architects of his family's destruction were led away in chains. He had rebuilt himself from the ashes they had created, emerging more powerful than before. That evening, he sat alone in his study, reviewing the final report on the Lazarus investigation. The conspiracy had been completely dismantled, the stolen technology recovered, and the traitors imprisoned. Justice had been served. A knock at the door revealed Logan in his dress uniform, ready for deployment. Sir, he greeted his father formally. I wanted to stop by before leaving. Come in, Andrew invited, pouring 2 glasses of bourbon. To your first deployment. They drank in comfortable silence before Logan spoke again. I saw the Vance sentencing on the news. Quite the takedown. Justice delayed, Andrew replied, but not denied. And Kayla's dinner this weekend. Will you really come? Andrew nodded. I said I would. Logan studied his father. She has worked hard to rebuild herself. Not unlike you. Perhaps, Andrew acknowledged. But trust, once broken, is not easily restored. No, Logan agreed. But family is still family, even with its scars. As Logan left for his deployment, Andrew stood on the steps of his Georgetown townhouse, watching his son drive away. The son who had never betrayed him. The son who still believed in family despite its fractures. Andrew Lawson had lost a wife, nearly lost a daughter, and exposed traitors at the highest levels of government. He had been betrayed, manipulated, and targeted. And through it all, he had remained true to his core principle. Loyalty above all, and consequences for those who violated it. He would attend Kayla's dinner. He would maintain the professional distance he had established, but he would never again trust as completely as he once had. The man who had tapped his fork against his glass that fateful night and uttered 3 sentences that changed everything had transformed completely. Andrew Lawson had not merely survived betrayal. He had transcended it, forging himself into something harder, colder, and ultimately more powerful, not through forgiveness, but through the absolute and unflinching delivery of consequences to those who had wronged him. Some men might have chosen forgiveness. Andrew Lawson had chosen justice instead. Cold, precise, and complete. That's the end of today's story. If you haven't yet, please like the video, subscribe, and turn on the bell. What are your thoughts? Share them in the comments. We read them all. And thanks for watching. You're always welcome here.